Hello Starseeds, welcome to Source Energetics. My name is Ashtara and today I'm sharing with you a pick a potion, pick a card reading full of advice and insights to help you wrap up the year of 2023, reflect on it from a very high level and move on into the new cycle of 2024. So even if you're watching this after the end of 2023, if you're watching this in 2024, as a matter of fact, at any time, it's going to help you put into perspective the cycles that you have gone through in this past year and prepare for the new cycle that is coming up ahead. This is going to be an extremely insightful and high level reading, and it's also simultaneously an energetic calibration session. It's going to work on your subtle energy levels to really transform you. Just aside from the mental conversations that we have, it is multiple levels of energy. So before we begin, I want to invite you to tune into your heart, ground your energy to the central core of the earth, and connect with your source level of being, your source field. And I'm requesting that you connect with all of your higher gravitational centers through your soul expression. And please feel free to invite in any of your personal guides that resonate with you of the purest and highest frequencies. And so there are 4 potions to choose from. You can choose however many that you want. You can choose all of them if they resonate. The first potion is the green diamond earth potion. The second potion is the moon potion. The third potion is the death potion. And the fourth potion is a love potion. So I'll see you in the reading. If you chose the earth potion, this is going to be your reading. Okay. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very intense. Well, I mean, of course, it's you. It's you guys. Of course it's intense. But as a general overall perspective of your energy, what I said about the macrocosmic cycle of this being beginning of a new chapter or a new level, for you, that couldn't be more true. You literally have back-to-back major arcanas, 5 major arcanas here that came up in a row, and that the likelihood of this happening is very unlikely. You have the lovers, you have the sun, you have the strength card, you have the death card, and then you have the fool card. I love that it ends with the fool card. And you're going through all of this layers and layers of dimensional calibrations that feels like your entire reality is jumbling up, that it is going through a chaotic spin with all of these synchronicities, but it's not very pleasant, to be honest, to have this much intensity, but you can definitely handle it, and that is why it's happening, and it is all leading towards this new beginning of the Fool. So the cycle of 2024, you're quite honestly going to become a new person, and this is like a person that you were always meant to be. So I wouldn't even feel surprised if you look at the person that you have been for the entire life until this point doesn't really even feel like you. I'm not saying that you act fake, or I'm not saying that you pretend to be like anyone else. You're being who you are, but who you are hasn't been the core truth of who you are on a soul level, because this is the point of where you are able to actually embody who you have become here to do. And it's almost as if this template has been set out of who you truly get to be, but the dimensional access point wasn't ready for you to actually be that. So it kind of is like the closest thing that you could be, to the closest degree that you could be, to the closest accuracy that you could be, but it was still like sub-dimensions off until this year. So, you know, it kind of, I literally suddenly got cold. Let me just, okay. And the energies that you're going through is like the death card, and this reminds me of the death potion. So I haven't done that reading yet, but it's most likely going to be helpful for you because the death card is here. And the strength card and the sun, it's just so powerful. It's almost like you all of a sudden have access to the stellar codes that you always needed to access to feel your fullest self. So it's almost as if I can describe this and you understand, this is a double confirmation for you. And if you can't really understand what I'm saying, it's still relevant for you. But if you understand it, it's even more relevant for you. It's like you had it's like the core truth of your beingness was anchored in another stellar system, and this constellation of this solar system had not had the access to those stellar systems in any of the gravitational vicinity until this year. So you know how sometimes the Sirian star system and the Orion star system aligns with our solar system, and that's kind of like Lionsgate, which is interesting because we got Lionsgate here. That's this strength card, it's the Leo season, it's Lionsgate. Isn't that fascinating that it's Leo season and then it's Lionsgate? Like, that's okay. Anyways, that's why it's called Lion. And I talk about this, so it kind of is making sense to me. I talk about as a dimensional channel. I perceive Lionsgate as a portal in which higher bandwidths of star systems or dimensional constructs can anchor down through the Sirian star portal, which Sirian star portal and both Orion star portal is used for other higher or more distant systems of life forms or consciousness to be able to become relevant to stream onto the planet Earth. And it's as if some of your most authentic star codes or your stellar codes, the plasmic codes from your stellar system, hasn't been available until this Lionsgate this year, and time travels in ripples back and forth from the event. So it doesn't mean that you're gonna have to wait until Lionsgate this year. But again, you know, kind of how sometimes if there's, for example, a Mercury retrograde or a full moon or a new moon, you can feel the effects from before, not just during the event, but from a few days before or even a few weeks before, depending on the size of the planet, if you're actually super sensitive, and you can feel it, the after effects of it as well. So same with this, it's like this stellar code is becoming accessible to our planet through this Lionsgate, and it's coming closer and closer into alignment that has potentially never even been accessible before. And imagine this was one of your main star stellar connections, and this makes sense also why this is the Earth potion, because that ability to access those codes finally will ground you here, because you found those plasmic codes here. And it's almost like you lived your life, but it felt like just something is off. And this is why, because no matter how authentic you are, part of your authenticity or your soul rendering, the reason why you can't just be yourself fully without having that stellar code activated is because you're part of that group consciousness of that stellar system. So even if you are as authentic as you can be, for example, if you're a starseed and you totally forgot the origin of your stellar network, and I'm sure you have experienced prior to your starseed awakening versus after your starseed awakening, makes so much difference, worlds of difference between your ability to be your authentic self. Because when you have a starseed awakening, that stellar system is actively working with your consciousness, and when you're aware of which star systems or that archetype of the stellar network or the archetype of the star nation, your awareness is so powerful that, say you attune to the Pleiadian star system, and even if you didn't know that you were connected to that, just your knowledge of that existence, of that Pleiadian star system, narrows down the bandwidth of all these infinite matrix of creation down to that morphogenetic field of Pleiades. And then now you have this super conscient connection to that visceral, palpable rendering of Pleiades. Even if you don't read about it and you just know about it, and that sound complex of Pleiades is in your conscious awareness as a human being, things shift. And that really also means that that level of your consciousness is integrated into your human consciousness. And this stellar system that is becoming aligned with you through this year, we don't even know what it's called. That's how foreign it is. And potentially this star network hasn't even been in alignment with the Earth's sphere for literally 1,000+ years. Like, that's how intense it is, because the distance of all of these star nations from the Earth, and some of them are so rare, like literally it could be like, I'm getting an image of it could even be portaled from another multiverse, that certain galactic portals open up just at this time, and then you get beamed with that home frequency starting this year, and you start to become somebody that you were always meant to be. And I know this reading takes on such a strange high level frequency, and if you're sticking around to actually listen to this, is probably so healing. And if you're not meant to be hearing this, you're probably like, what the F is she talking about? But if you're still drawn to listen, there's something there. Why would you even be listening to this? Anyway, we have the Lovers card. I do believe that signals to coming into union with a soulmate or some person. I don't see this as a lot of people. There's literally, I would say there's literally a couple of people to a few people on this entire planet who share that esoteric code of that specific stellar system from that specific multiverse that is rarely in alignment with our entire multiverse. And because those plasmic codes are beaming through this year, you're gonna come into contact with this person. It manifests in that way, and this person literally makes you feel like, you know, when people say you can just totally be yourself around certain people who are your soul family, but this person literally makes you feel more like yourself than ever before. And it's not like you need that person to be there or ever just stick around for you to actually remember that state, but it's just the recognition or that reflection of that consciousness and validating that on this physical plane. It gives you this irreversible activation of those codes and this full permission slip to embody that on this planet here. So definitely not a codependent thing where you feel more like yourself. It's just a reflection of beaming through that plasmic code. Again, it's not about how much are you being yourself prior to this portal opening, but it's just the nature of your energetic circuitry, and the templates in which you are based on hasn't been accessible. It's like you beam your consciousness as a high level density being through to this parallel dimension that you find yourself here, and for that level of yourself, it's rendering multiple different kind of streams of consciousness, and you just get to fuse harmonically with those other rendering of your streams, and then it just kind of creates that wholeness here for you on Earth. And this isn't just happening for you. I mean, obviously, I say that there's only a few people who share that specific code from that specific stellar system, but there are multiple different stellar systems like this that is going to be accessible through this portal. So it's like, imagine this is from parallel multiverse number 14, and this constellation of star from that multiverse, and then there's parallel multiverse number 37, and there's another star there that is accessible. Like, it's like that level of synchronization beam from different multiverses that have not been accessible until this right now here. Oops, isn't that crazy? So okay, so let me vibrate in these energetics, and what I see now for you as you're wrapping up this year is that you have this energy of anxiety. Like, there's this underlying tone of anxiety and you're not even sure why you're so anxious. And there's another energy of you feeling like, where are the results, right? And it's understandable, because what is occurring for you in the next year, you can intuitively tune in that things are going to change so much, so drastically. So part of that anxiety doesn't really have a root cause in anything that you're doing or anything that is currently happening, you know, right in front of you, but it's more so that deep intuitive knowing that everything is about to shift just far beyond your imagination. And the reason why you haven't been able to see the fruition of your results, I mean, I see this like you feel kind of down because you haven't been able to materialize as many results as you would like to have produced. And it's all coming from a higher level of wanting to be of service, wanting to be the person that you were always meant to be. But imagine, like, taking into consideration everything that I've shared with you, all the information that I shared with you about your soul templates and the accessibility of those plasmic codes through a portal, because it can't possibly just reach here without a wormhole. And the wormhole has a synchronicity and design, how it can be calibrated to this solar system, of how the universe is architected as a collective reality. If you see this, if you see this card, this seven of, if you see this card, the ring light. Okay, if you see this card of the Seven of Pentacles, this girl is literally sad looking at the fruits. And I know it's enough fruits, but it's like she was hoping to get 10 times more than this, you know? And she generally looks so disappointed. And this is kind of your energy right now and why you feel so anxious. And I think too, a lot of people, they will just look at you and be like, why can't you just be grateful for that? And sure, you can be grateful for that, but you know deep inside that there's something so much more than this that you were meant to be, and that synchronization is coming up in the next year. So if you have that kind of underlying anxiety and you're experiencing that as we wrap up this year and just thinking about the nature of time, and almost feels like you're running out of time, like, you know, these faces look just so sad. I feel like you're kind of sad right now. Like, not just kind, I feel like you're really sad. And you don't really have a valid reason to explain why you're sad. I mean, I feel like you're the type of energy where if you complain to other people, they're gonna be like, are you kidding me? They just won't really get it. Because there are a lot of far worse situations, and I think that from the outside you seem fine, like very blessed, to be honest. If you look at these people, they're glowing, they're in a nice setting, and it looks like she has enough. Like, why would she complain? But it's just, they don't get that, this sense of void that is created from, and not to use the word void as if there's something wrong with that, because there's nothing wrong with the void, but it feels like just something is missing, and it feels like something has been completely missing. It feels like your battery thus far, imagine if you're like this battery system, just like how your phone has a battery and there's percentage. It just feels like your battery, your personal battery, has always just been like 70%, and no matter how much you charge it, it only just goes up to 70%. And people will be like, well, you're not running out of battery, you have 70%. But it's like, there's something wrong with this whole picture. There's nothing wrong, it's just the way that it's been set up for you. And as you come into this full synchronization with that very otherworldly dimensional system, like there's literally another multiverse and a stellar system within the other multiverse, for that to be able to come online here on Earth, yes, it just, like, can you imagine that coming online before the pandemic happened? Because the pandemic really crushed the social matrix and what people thought was possible on the collective level. Like, literally people had to go through a paradigm where it didn't make any sense what was happening, and the strangest events occurred during that pandemic. And yes, it has so many different side effects and why it happened, like whatever. I'm not interested in the talking about any of why it happened or whatever, but one of the effects of that was that the collective mind was blown open, and through that break openness comes a space to actually anchor in something just so otherworldly, because we already all went through something just what, you know? So yes. Okay, so let me read your other cards. We have destruction, releasing your anger. Yeah, destruction of the old, and I do see that you have a lot of pent up anger. You know, for you, just looking at your energy, you look like you've done enough self-work, and you look like you haven't really had an issue with your self. This card is signaling to that great purging of the underlying anger that you feel, and maybe you don't even notice that you have this anger, because with this level of density and this high level density, you may not necessarily want to express anger. And I'm not saying that you have a lot of pent-up anger, because I don't think that you do. I think this is a healthy level of anger, but I do think that there is a pent-up level of anger that you are now called to really, really release. So it could be the fact that you just had 70% of batteries to work with all your life. I mean, that must be frustrating. And this underlying anxiety, and the fact that you couldn't really make sense of what was going on through this whole life, because once you come into a stabilization of the wholeness of yourself, also you may start to experience this anger that you've been suppressing. So I want to suggest that you get a very healthy outlet for this anger, whether it's a creative pursuit, whether it's a physical pursuit. Like, physical exertion is a very good way to express your anger, whether it is literally screaming or kicking the air or punching pillows, whatever it is that you feel is safe to harness this sacred rage that you've been kind of suppressing. Feel into that and release that. And it's going to be very fine, and it's going to be very healthy for you to do this. And I do see that you're not necessarily a big fan of feeling this way, but know that this anger can be transmuted into a very sacred fire. So if you see this card and you see this angel that is on top of the dragon, it's a very sacred energy that is hovering above this fire. So whether it is like a creative outlet or some sort of sensual expression that you can really tune into, this would help you really release this anxiety, because this anxiety that you feel underlying, and some people can say like, oh, I'm not anxious, but actually anxiety is a pretty underlying condition of being human, but it just depends how aware you are of that frequency so that you know how to transmute it. But I see for you that in a lot of the construct of your anxiety is actually just suppressed anger. So acknowledge that, and when you feel like this restless anxiety in your mind, maybe you're overthinking, maybe you're worried, find the frequency of that sacred anger that you feel, know that it is justifiable, and find a creative outlet to let that run free. Last but not least, we have the Healing Waters Oracle. I'm gonna pull 2 cards. Selkie, come out of hiding, embrace who you really are. Embrace who you really are. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's really, you're gonna be able to meet the wholeness of who you are. It's like I hope you understand what I'm saying, where I express you haven't really been able to be your true self because it was inaccessible as a collective template in the morphogenetic field. But now that becomes available, you get to really learn who you are. You're gonna love it. Like, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love the person that you get to be. So take the time to become very open-minded, to learn who you get to become through this next year. You're gonna surprise yourself in very positive and gorgeous ways. Just know that you're going to be stepping into a new archetype, new roles that you didn't know that was possible to access, and just do the clearing work. Make space now for you to be able to really step into this. I know you already know the procedures of cutting out toxic relationships, toxic dynamics, and old belongings, belief systems. Do the clearing work throughout the rest of the year that is left, or even if you're watching this in 2024, just clear that out. And be aware that you're about to welcome in levels of your being that you weren't able to embody before. And it's really gonna feel alien to this world. It's gonna feel very otherworldly, and it's gonna be very authentic, and you get to find out what that is. But at the same time, it's gonna feel like yourself more than ever before. So one more card. Isle of Avalon, healing, returning to wholeness, transformation. Everything that I've been saying is correct. Returning to wholeness, like you are seriously returning to this wholeness, and this wholeness that you integrate into your embodiment is going to transform the rest of you. When there are just certain final pieces of the puzzle that just changes everything. The one certain final perspective, or the one certain final lens that changes the way that everything was structured. So even the parts of you, say the 70% of you that was always there aligned, the anchoring of these new levels will seriously change the entire nature of the rest of you and transform into a new way of being. Like, just in Pokemon, the Pokemon just evolves into a new being. It's like just evolves. The entire form, the entire skill set, the entire energetic vibe will just transform into something new. And so, wow, what a great reading that I didn't expect to I didn't expect that. I hope you enjoyed. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me. If you want to see some of my more exclusive work, please head on over to my Patreon, where I share, literally there are hundreds of activations and readings available for you, and new ones are added every single month. And I hope you have an amazing time wrapping up this beautiful cycle of the year, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye. The lighting is just okay. Okay, the first message that you have is you have new opportunities of income coming towards you, like an opportunity of making new income, new ways of receiving income, and new ways of relating to money. But from what I see, you're kind of holding on too tight, gripping on too tight to what you have built, or the ways in you have built it thus far. So you almost have this way of thinking about income that is far outdated in relation to the new ways in which you're going to be receiving money in the next year. So what is being called for you to do is really take into account how you've made your money up until now, and the relationship that you had with your income, and this belief algorithm that you have around making money. What do you equate making money to? And what do you feel when you are called to spend or invest money as well? Because as an empath, or as a higher dimensional being, depending on like how much energy that you interact with prior to a certain event, you could be feeling into that so far before it actually happens. And sometimes you're really guided to make these lifestyle changes to these new ways of creating money, or change your system of belief or perspectives that is actually going to align with this new template of money, this new stream of money, and the type of beliefs, frequencies, and vibrations that is really resonant to hold this money that is different from the money that you've been making in the past. So go into this deep self-awareness around how you feel around making money and how you feel about spending your money, and get ready, get prepared to receive it in different ways. And you choosing this moon potion, it's almost Neptunian to me, this vibe, and it tells me that you're deeply in tune with your intuition. So always listen to your intuition when it comes to the ways that you are compelled to spend money, for example, or receive money also, whether you have clients or whether you have a job or you're looking to expand that, or however you want to relate to money. Really tune into your intuition. So when you're about to make a purchase, for example, or when you're about to make an investment into something, listen to your mind, and then also listen to your intuition, and understand the different archetypes of your decision making before you make the real decision. Ideally, you're harmonizing all aspects of yourself. Your brain, your mind, your heart, and your instincts all are valid for multiple reasons, and ideally you harmonize all three centers to make the decision. So what is being called for you to do, if you're being called to spend some more money than you had before, for example, and maybe you have to use some of your savings to do that, and you're being really guided to do that, even if you don't necessarily see the ways in which you're gonna multiply that or the ways in which you're gonna make it back, trust your intuition when it calls you to spend that. Because sometimes when you're about to receive new streams of income, it also kind of challenges you to get acquainted with spending as much as you would create the new income. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but really, if you're energetically attuned, these are the subtle differences that higher dimensional, more intuitive, more subtly tuned fields of frequencies interact with a human being. I feel like you're quite irritated at the moment for some reason, and this has a lot to do with external people and what other people think of you. And it's not that you care necessarily what they think of you because you want to please them, but it's more like you can feel the energy of what they're thinking of you. Maybe there are some people who are jealous, maybe there are some people who wishes that they could have more contact with you, and it's kind of like really dense in your field. And this card that just came up, the Queen of Swords, is asking you to be pretty discerning when it comes to those energies. When you feel those energies, instead of feeling like, oh, why do I care? Well, you care because it's like quite literally in your field. So I feel like this, you who chose this pile, you're having a difficult time justifying yourself for the level of sensitivity that you experience. And I'm just here to share my perspectives on how valid it is that you feel all of these subtle things, and how okay it is to make certain decisions. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are saying like, well, and I know there's a lot of techniques out there who will teach you to stop tuning into other people's energy and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes what you can do is just make decisions that are aligned with all the information that are in your field. And of course, bring your energy back to yourself always. Do the energetic cleansing. Just like how you would shower, you have to cleanse your energy. But when it persistently comes up, there may be things that need to be looked at just far past beyond why am I feeling all of these energies? How do I create the boundaries? But on top of that, maybe is there something for you to look at, for you to shift and change around the ways you've been making decisions or responding to your external circumstances. So when you feel these other people's energies, and I feel like this is going to increase as you open up to this new way of being, this new way of embodiment, and this new streams of income, and this let me go into it deeper before I continue to talk about this. Anyway, circling back to the point of you feeling everyone's energy, maybe what they want from you, maybe they want to get in contact with you, but they don't really have the audacity to actually message you or call you, but they're just thinking of you. You know, make the discernment to know that you have a right to not respond to them. And maybe there's a part of you that feels like, oh, maybe, yeah, I should let them back into my life, or maybe I should continue to communicate more to them. No, it's fine. Right now, it feels like you're going through a very intense transition into a new way of being and just getting really in touch with yourself. And when you know deep within that you know your boundaries and you don't feel guilty for being very discerning of your life and your space and who you let into your inner circle, then other people don't necessarily feel like that either. So like if you're very clear, like here are my boundaries and I have no reason to need to respond to all of these requests of connection and all of that, then subconsciously other people will also have that clarity about you. Okay, we have the Page of Pentacles, Five of Wands, and the Tower card. Let's see. Yes, so this new income, it feels like for some people, it's coming through a new job. The Page of Pentacles, you could be a newbie at a field of work. Maybe you are beginning a new project or a new service that you are beginning to provide that you haven't done before. So for you, this is a new field of work. Even if you already have an established career, you're branching off into specializations that you haven't before. And that's actually really triggering this series of internal conflicts that you have around this new way of making income. It's like you know how sometimes you judge other people for doing something, or you've always thought that, oh, this line of work is like that and I just would never do that, or it feels like this voice of criticism that has been just cultivating in yourself, it won't have room anymore as you step into this new branch of being. And so you can either go at this with as much grace and with as much ease as possible. Like Tower card in a lot of ways is a beautiful energy. I actually love the Tower card. And for you, what is crumbling apart is this energy of the inner critic and how much you have judged yourself and others. And I do see that you constantly judge yourself. You are constantly worried about making the right decisions or holding on to what you have built in the past. And you are afraid of letting this just unfold. And you are quite concerned about what other people are going to think as well. And this ties back exactly to what we said about you can feel other people thinking about you in the field. Maybe people gossiping, or maybe people are bombarding your psychic space, just trying to get a hold of your energy on a subtle level. And that's why you almost care, like if I go down this way, what are they gonna think? Because they're just gonna keep bombarding your field. But you have to first firmly make the clear decision that like people can think whatever they want, but you choose not to let that into your decision making, and you choose not to take your attention away from what truly matters to you. And I see you really continually judging yourself, and you feel like you're not good enough to be doing what you're doing, especially in this new line of work that you're going into, or this new creative project. Maybe you're writing a book, or maybe you're starting a podcast, maybe you're starting a YouTube channel, or maybe you're just, branching out into different things that you didn't really think you would be doing in the next year. And there's a voice in you that continually tries to stop you, that continually criticizes you. And it feels like when you make some way into it, at the middle of it, you just stop and you will just let it go. It's like, okay, you get to like 10-20% of the work, and then you just want to be like, I don't know if this is meant for me. But please just keep going and identify the part of your mind that wants to stop because you feel like you're not good enough. And this obviously came from some past trauma around creating something that you really expressed yourself into, and then some person decided to judge it or tell you that it's not good enough. So allow that to just be forgiven, that whole experience, and know that whatever you are guided to create through the next cycle is obviously done from a place of your authentic heart and soul. And forgive the part of yourself that wants to just criticize and stop. And it's fine. You can pause and stop if you want to. But always remember to get back on track when you can just get yourself together and realize it's for, first and foremost, the sake of creation itself. It doesn't have to be seen by anyone, and it doesn't have to be published yet. Just finish the whole thing for the sake of finishing. Just create it for the sake of creating it. Because when you actually create something, you're in this mode of channeling and receptivity. And when you channel it to its full completion, it would have literally adjusted your vibrational frequencies, and you will never be the same again after that creation. So the creation, the purpose of it is fundamentally not to be shared and be recognized. Of course, it will get there when it's time. But don't create something for the sake of creating it so that it can be received by others. Just understand that the act of creation itself is healing for you, and it is important for you. It's important for you to express what it is that you envision, because you'll grow that skill. You'll cultivate that skill when you catch a vision, when you have an idea, and you start to calibrate into it and you nurture into it and you finish it to the end. It becomes a skill. So it's a practice for, say that you're wanting to write a book or you're wanting to make a podcast, and maybe the results are gonna be unknown, but your ability to actually commit to something to its full completion is a skill set that once you learn to master this, and it doesn't have to take that much time, it could literally take up 10 minutes a day, and then eventually it'll be finished. If you will just stop judging it, and if you will just stop tuning into what will other people think. Be very clear that, okay, I can understand that other people will think things, but I am clear that I will not let that stop me from doing what I need to do, deciding what I need to decide, and creating what I need to create, and branching off and experimenting whatever it is that I'm experimenting with. So create it. And in terms of your work, I do see that what it is that you will be creating, it will lead to income. And I don't necessarily see this as creating like massive income right away. It will just open up and start to trickle in, but for the long run, it's going to expand, right? So for now, focus on creating, and focus on creating for the sake of creating, and focus on your ability to acknowledge what other people think. And no matter how many people say like, I don't care what people think, I don't care. I mean, it's a questionable thing, because you kind of do have to take things into consideration, how things reflect. Otherwise, it would just be socially irresponsible and emotionally unintelligent just not to care at all what people think. You have to have that ability to gauge into how your action or how your intentions or how your speech or how your work is going to affect other people. So in that way, it is healthy to gauge that, but don't live from that reflection. Use it as a momentary tool, and know that as long as what you're creating is heart-based, and what you're creating is coming from that pure stream of expression, that pure stream of creation, that pure stream of service, then that frequency will carry itself out to the receiver. So this says, come out of hiding, embrace who you truly are. And here what I want to say is, actually, if you happen to just really despise getting judged by other people, most likely, and I'm sorry to say this, and I say this with all love, most likely you judge other people very harshly. And maybe that's a defense mechanism, I don't know. But when you stop judging other people, and when you stop judging yourself so much, this really does start with self-acceptance. You judge yourself so much that other people judging you will just snowball mountain ball into that whole complex of judgments that you have in your entire energy field that you've just been cultivating. So imagine if somebody just didn't judge themselves, they just accepted themselves through all of their highs and lows, through all of their mistakes, and they just had this very healthy, unconditional relationship with themselves, where no matter how things progress, no matter if they accomplish whatever they think they need to accomplish to be worthy of love, they are able to just meet themselves as the divine being that they already are, and have this compassionate acceptance of themselves. Then if other people were to judge them, maybe it'll just be like, okay, but there's nothing that's going to be so triggering that deeply. But because imagine your judgment is already like a big ball, so if other people throw judgments at you, that ball is just like explosive. It's like, you know what I mean? If the vibrational judgment was like this small and other people throw judgments, it's like, meh, it is what it is. So at the end of the day, this is asking you to please stop judging yourself, stop judging other people, and that is going to be a very healing process for you through this creation. And you are meant to be creating whatever it is that you're going to be creating throughout the next year. And okay. And I actually see that you're gonna get multiple streams of income throughout the next years to come. So like even in the next year, I see you being able to set up different streams of income for abundance to channel in. And just the act of opening up the channels in which income can reach you is a profound act of creation. Even if it doesn't stream through right away, it means that you are letting the universe know, hey, here are some ways that you can reach me and assist me more. And then eventually some of those will really take off. So don't have any expectations around, okay, well, I'm going to set up this service, I'm going to set up this creation project, and hopefully it'll work. Well, even if it doesn't, eventually the universe knows that all of those channels are set up, and some of them are really going to happen. What really matters? Reflect, reprioritize. And I'm just unexpected gifts, kindness, karmic jewels. plunge, don't hold back. It's time, go for it, dive in. Guys, like, let me explain to you, when I'm doing this reading, I have this shield of protection, yet I am able to empathize with the actual feelings that you are having. So like, I have clairsentience, clairgnosis, like whatever clears everything else, clairvoyance, like everything, right? But the feeling is also what I really tune into. And when I'm recording this, do you know how many times that I just wanted to stop this reading? I'm like, this reading, it's not good enough. Like, this is not the right reading. I don't know. Like, and that just wouldn't stop for this entire 20 something minutes. And that's not coming from me. This is coming from tuning into whatever energies that are being called to release. And I know this is a more difficult reading for you to take in. I know you want me to sit here and tell you like all of the magnificent things that are going to be happening next year. Yes, they are going to be happening next year, and this is what needs to happen in order to welcome those in. I can promise you, when you can let go of this, and I know you're a great person, I'm not saying that you're, like, I don't want to be pointing out these constructive criticisms. I would just rather tell you that everything's gonna be, perfect. But when you can accept this and release it, the level of blessings that will stream in, because self-love is one of those key access points for miracles, and it's a key access point for you to manifest literally everything you want in life. And I see your energy thinking that you're not good enough. Whatever you create, you think that it could have been better. Whatever you are called to do or decide to do, you do have this layer of fearing judgment, and that fear of judgment comes from the internalized criticizer. And that, obviously, you weren't born with that. You were not born with that. You adopted that from either a parent, highly likely, or the society, peers, whatever it is. You've internalized this archetype of a criticizer. Somebody would criticize you a lot, or a group of people would criticize you a lot, and then it just became a part of your subconscious mind. So when you release that, the amount of channels of blessings and abundance and love that is going to naturally fill into your life, that is just a part of who you are and what you're born to live. But please do neutralize this judgment energy that you feel to yourself. And when you learn to recognize that archetype of that criticizer, you can recognize it when it happens and continue onwards, which is exactly what I'm doing. I understand the voice of the criticizer. So instead of being under it and making my decisions based on that voice, for example, when I started this reading, I'm like, okay, this reading is not good and I have to stop it and start again. But I recognize that pattern of the mind as an archetype, and I'm like, oh no, that's just that voice. And then I just finished the reading, and I'm sure that this pile of this reading that I didn't stop is going to help those people who are going to be choosing this pile and resonate with it. And I'm sure that if I started another pile, it would have never been the same. So please learn what that frequency is like and learn to work with it and dance around it. And the more you do that, the more you shed that light of awareness onto that archetype of your mind, the more alchemized that archetype becomes, the more you accept yourself, and then the more you love yourself. And that is the key to accept everything that you are going to be receiving, all the blessings. And I'm sure that there's tons of blessings, but this reading was more about how to get there. If you do want to tune into other piles, please feel free to do that. And I just gotta end this reading by saying that you have a lot of gifts to offer to the world. You have a lot of skills and expressions to share with the world, creativity. And it's time to just dive into that. You shouldn't need external validation from me or anyone else. And you don't necessarily need years and years and years of experience. This card comes up with the Page of Pentacles and with this Karmic Jewel card. Let me see this one. The Wishing Well is about the Karmic Jewel. For me, this Karmic Jewel card in this context speaks about the gifts that you've harnessed in other lifetimes, in parallel lives. So, for example, let's say that you are currently aspiring to be a musician and you've never done music before, but you just want to pick up music all of a sudden, and you feel like this imposter syndrome of like, who am I to do this now? Am I good enough? Am I talented enough? But actually, literally in other lifetimes, that's your entire life, is your purpose of being a musician and expressing through sound. So you don't necessarily need to look for proof in your current life, but the depth of your soul and these karmic jewels that you have. And when you're a conscious conduit of energy, which you are, you're very intuitive, you're very Neptunian, very esoteric, you're very tuned in. This is like, you have clear channels for archetypes and energies that you can harness from multiple different lifetimes, and that's actually one of your greatest skills. So you might actually feel like, I am good at things, but I'm not like a complete master at any of them. Could be how you feel sometimes. Or at least you don't feel like you're the best at any of them. Like you're good enough, but not like the world's highest level. And forget about all of those aspects and just know that the one core thing to be good at is to be able to be a conduit, this empty vessel. And from that emptiness and from that clear vessel, you don't necessarily need to be the best at anything in this life, but you get to actually channel the mastery from other lifetimes. And yes, that is quite esoteric, but you are esoteric. Cool. I hope that this reading has been helpful. I'm sorry that I had to be a little bit more of a tough love kind of reading here, but I do believe and trust that this is going to be of your highest assistance. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If you love my content, please check out my Patreon for a bunch of exclusive readings and activations, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hello, Starseeds who chose the Death Potion. You are a rebel. I really admire your courage to choose the Death Potion. And I know what it can seem like to others, but death is a beautiful aspect of reality. And yes, on the third dimension, it's really drastic and dense. But in higher realities, death is so graceful and beautiful in a lot of ways. Just like how birth is so dramatic and it's literally could be so painful, the process of birth, giving birth and receiving birth. You know, when you're like anchoring into this reality, birth can be a very traumatizing experience. Like all of the core traumas that we have as humans, especially as high density consciousness, birth is a very traumatizing experience. And same with death here, but the fact that you still chose this, you're very much comfortable with the darker aspects of life, of course, and the unknown. You have the judgment card. Then you have the King of Swords. Queen of Cups. Ace of Wands. The Emperor. So this is very divinely masculine energy. So that is the kind of energy that you'll be activating through this transition of wrapping up this year and really rising up into the aligned calibration of who you are and fully empowered as the being that you are. It's a powerful, powerful energy, and it is still balanced by this divine feminine energy of the Queen of Cups. And I know I've extensively discussed the polarization of masculine and feminine through a lot of spiritual teachings, but in this context, I'm not overdoing it. All right. So in your field, I feel this quite intense, and some might even call you arrogant, energy of wanting to just get the tasks done. So you're very driven, you're very, very ambitious, but there's a part of you that just wants to get things done and go to the next step. But you'll soon quickly realize that type of mindset will have you live in that space of forever wanting to just get things over with instead of enjoying the process of it all. So I believe that you're actually quite aware of that, and this really calls you to take a look at your relationship with time, because you're looking at this like almost a game, and you love to accomplish things. You love that rush of feeling the accomplishment and feeling that relief of, wow, I just did that. And then you just run to do more because you want more of that. So what the cards are asking you now is that you're being aligned with a very higher level vision of where things are headed. With this Judgment card, it's like, feels like you'll be receiving the ultimate destination of your life's epitome in its mission and its purpose and its service. But this is not something you can just get done with, because this is going to take like a good decade. And I feel like so far you've had goals, but that were more short term. So instead of like a 10-year scale, you've more so ran under motivations that were targeted towards like 2 or 3 years. And of course, sometimes things take way more than when you think is going to happen. So even when you set a 2 or 3 year goal, it's likely possible due to the nature of this reality that it took way longer than that. But initially you start out with like shorter couple of years of how you want things to turn out or the results that you want to see. And as I am saying this, there is that part of your mind that feels super challenged yet excited about time. Yet there's a deep, wise version of you that's also very observant of yourself. So I'm just addressing these parts of your mind so that you can have this reflected, and this awareness that I'm reflecting with you actually helps you transmute it. So now that you're being given this broad picture of this literally like a decade or more, and that's a longer time than you've worked with, you're gonna start to realize the only way to accomplish this is to enjoy the process itself and understand that the process itself is going to be really rewarding. So we've all been programmed around this mentality of retirement, and even if you never thought about your life like that you're gonna work your way until a certain age and then just retire, that archetype of thinking of I'll just do this and then I'll have this time to chill has been really programmed into the human consciousness. And I talk about the organizations of school systems or work systems that create this archetype of time, and I talk about this extensively in some readings, and this is one of the cases where it applies, that also when you go to schools, it's like you really have to work hard and then you get summer break. You really work hard and then you get a bit of a winter break. So people are genuinely conditioned to work really hard for a really short break. And that's the attitude you even had with your personal life. It's like, I want to accomplish this so that I can chill. But what if the chill becomes integrated into the accomplishment? Not that inorganic way of waiting for some time where you could finally be at peace. It has to be constructed into the process. The joy and the bliss and the enjoyment of it all has to be part of the process. And you're going to realize this as you receive this kind of like 10-year scope. Maybe you recently received it, or you'll be receiving it throughout the next year, of like having a really clear understanding of how you want to approach the next 10 to 12 years. And 10 to 12 years is a long time to sprint for a break of enjoyment. Like you really can't. Like a couple of years, actually, yeah, you can. 1 year, yeah, you can accomplish what you need to accomplish and mentally tell yourself that, okay, now I can enjoy this and relax and chill. But by the time at which you will have new goals. So it's never been that viable from the first place. But now that you're getting this decade-long vision, you really get to understand that you need to change your entire perspective around accomplishment. And it's interesting because sometimes I watch like really interesting videos, podcasts with very successful, interesting people. And I remember watching this interview with Ben Baller, who is like this jeweler, who's like a cultural phenomena of a jeweler. He's a Korean, used to be in the music industry, and then he went into jewelry making. And I'm watching this old successful man's reminiscing about all of his accomplishments, going through all the thick and thin, and now he's like old, and I could viscerally feel that little bit of that. I could see it in his face and his energy. Like he's just been striving for that success all his life, and he did all of it, like phases and phases of success, money making, becoming well known and influential, and having a family and having a partnership and all of that. And it's kind of like, what now? And I remember just thinking like, it's really never to be lived like that. Like you can't just chase after accomplishment in order to just relax after. Because if I'm looking at these older accomplished people, and I could genuinely tell if their drive was like that, it's like, I just want to accomplish as much as possible, and it's like towards an unknown destination that they don't even know about, that they're not even aware. Like where are you running towards? Because when you run towards an accomplishment, when you run towards a milestone, the state of the accomplishment is never what we thought it was. Just like, I don't remember exactly who said this. It might have been Almin, that you climb a mountain and you're looking at the mountaintop and you're just like, oh, I need to get to that mountaintop. That's where I'm going to feel accomplished. And then you go to the mountaintop, but the actual landscape of the mountaintop, or the reality of the mountaintop, is never what you thought it was gonna be from the bottom. Like the perspective from the bottom is that it was on the top, but when you're on the top, it's flat. Do you understand what I mean? And then there's like, from the top of the mountain, you could see other mountains or other landscape that is even more higher. And you see that you dwell on the mountaintop, and eventually you would have to make it down, or you can just like, It's not a state in which it just will stabilize and be the rest of your life. So you're being called to really learn to perceive life from a higher level, from a bird's eye perspective, and stop striving to get somewhere. Like that striving energy, I think you're almost identified with it, whether you know it, like you're energetically identified with that energy of striving. Like you are just so focused. And that's a great thing to have, because a lot of people lack that. Most people in the world are not driven or that ambitious, and you have so much ambition to a point where I will be talking about that. And I do see that you're going to be really learning this lesson and tempering it down, and this is a part of the process. I don't see you having this for the rest of the year or whatever, but that thirst of that ambition is not going to change after you get somewhere. That is a archetype of your mind that will continue on with its character. So learn how to temper it, learn how to mentor that aspect of your mind, use it to your advantage, because it is useful and it is a valuable quality, but don't let it run the show. Have it be a companion and a tool that you use, but don't let it be your main focal lens. Okay. The illusion, that is exactly that level of your mind that just wants to strive, and it's like you're craving that state of feeling accomplished, as if that is going to last forever, but no, that doesn't last. And when you shed this light of truth onto your ambition and onto your life goals, and I do see, like, you are destined for greatness. That's why you have this much ambition. That's why you get a 10-year vision. You know, 10-year visions are not usually something that everybody gets access to, because, I don't know, it's just not for everybody. And it's, you know, people can have general ideas of how they want to be vibrating in 10 years. But when you have like a mission that is really outstretched that far, you know how people say, I don't know what I would do if I had like that much. Imagine if somebody said like there's $10 billion, and I've generally met intelligent, wealthy millionaires, like founders of companies or very successful businessmen, sometimes in finance, sometimes in other industries, that say like, I wouldn't know what to do with that much money. Like, how could I use it to the best of my abilities? I mean, not just to stack in the background or just do nothing with it, but what would really be the best way to spend that money? It's almost like having that much, it's like having political power if you have that much money, right? Like, you really have the ability to create significant impact on the world. And some people genuinely wouldn't know what to do with that. And I feel like you're one of those people who actually do know what to do with that. Yeah. So that's really, oh, look at that. As we say, abundance. So that abundance card coming up with illusion card tells me, and I know you can handle this. You can handle this constructive criticism, but you have so much abundance with you now, actually, and you low-key genuinely know that you are destined for abundance. I mean, like, literally, I just said if you had billions of dollars, you would actually know how to allocate that towards a greater mission. And somebody who has that bandwidth of a vision, or that bandwidth of cognition to be able to know what's going to create that level of change, is sort of destined to come across, maybe not 10 billion, unless that's really meant for you, but even a billion, even multiple millions, 8 figures, 7 figures, whatever is calibrated to your personal mission, you're destined to come across that level of abundance. And yet you still have doubts about that. You still have doubts about, will I really be abundant? Will I really have that? And part of it is because you're always striving to get to the next tier. But please just reflect on how far you have come, even in the past few years. You've been striving to get here, and you have accomplished so much, but you're under the illusion that you just need to do more. Like, this voice will not stop. This voice of accomplishment will not stop. And again, that's a gift if you know how to use it. But if you don't know how to use that, you'll just be a slave to that, feeling like you need to accomplish more. When you get to there, you'll just want to get more. So please take a deep breath as we wrap up this cycle of the year, to reflect on how far you have come. Like, this is actually literally a turning point in a chapter, as we spoke about, just macrocosmically speaking. I am not detail oriented around astrology, but I feel the energy of the stars, and stars that are far beyond our solar system. So what I feel is that collectively we're turning a new chapter, and personally you're turning a new chapter, and you need to celebrate how far you have come to arrive at this point. And it's not about the external circumstances per se, and I'm sure that there's a lot of external circumstances that you have accomplished, but not to the level of your ambition. I get it, but you know, internally, even the fact that you have received or will be receiving a 10-year trajectory, like a massively transformative purpose. That is a word phrased by Peter Diamandis, who is a tech entrepreneur. He's a legend, actually. If you're interested in looking up the work from Peter Diamandis, he does tech industry like nobody else. It's like just mind-blowing. And he's not that famous. He is to his own degree, but not to the level where it's like mind-blowing what he's doing, but there's not a lot of press coverage. There's a lot of people like that in the technology industry who are also spiritual to their own degree, but they don't really get much press, and they're not very well known. I think, first of all, because they don't really care to be like famous, even though they are recognized in that industry and stuff. But for example, Peter Diamandis, he has a company for human longevity, extending human lifespans. He has a company for space exploration. Yeah, Elon Musk is famous for that, but there's other very high level entrepreneurs doing that as well, like super solid. And I'm sharing this partially because I think that's the level of ambition that you have. But yes, Peter Diamandis is the person who phrased the term massively transformative purpose. And it's like that moonshot goal of how will you impact this earth and this civilization? And you actually have this ambition, like you want to create a massive impact onto this whole civilization. And that's why you have this thirst and this ambition, and it's fire. It's pure fire, you know? But you know the element of fire. You need to know how to harness that. And first of all, be aware of that. Like, you have this fire burning in you. And so, you know, temper that with water, the realm of feeling and intuition, and just do activities that really nurture that so that you can balance that fire when you feel it way too much. And don't be uncomfortable when that ambition is there. And if you don't know how to deal with that ambition voice that just wants more and more and more, and you just believe everything that it's telling you, eventually you're gonna feel like crap, because it's gonna convince you that you just haven't scratched the surface of anything. Like, but that's the voice of that ambition, is like, otherwise how could you just be motivated to create that massive impact unless you felt like you really have to get there, right? So understand the double-edged sword that ambition is, and learn how to harness it and learn how to nurture it. You are coming into victory. And because this reading is about wrapping up this year and going on to the next, and the way that I see this time cycle is really, you're going to see significant changes in the next year, but it's going to stretch again into 2 or 3 more years. And so, how you're going to actually materialize all of those changes in the 2 or 3 years actually require that level of massive transformative purpose of the 10-year vision that you are working with, that you're actually being prepared to actually anchor in. And you will be victorious, but that also requires you to work with the part of your brain that just is plagued with illusions of how much you have to get somewhere. That retirement mentality of like, I need to accomplish that and then I can relax. Like, no, relax at the same time. We have just trust and metamorphosis, and see beyond the past. So these cards are asking you to, I do feel like you're right now, you feel like a caterpillar. You genuinely feel like a caterpillar. And you are going through this metamorphosis. And you have a difficult time trusting if that is really what is happening, because you've had cycles in the past where you felt like you were really shifting into that full potential of who you are, but the results didn't come out as much as you would like to. So all these ambitions that you held in the past as like the 2 or 3 year goal, or the ambitions that you strive to get to, I genuinely see that it was sometimes partially delusional. And I say this word with caution, because all of those were divinely orchestrated to get you where you are here now. But there were some things that you just kind of miscalculated in the process of getting to know yourself and in the process of getting to know the world. A lot of times people think they really want something because they think they know that thing. But once in the process of getting there, they learn so much about what it is that they wanted to accomplish in the first place. And it's very multifaceted, just like how I talk about the mountaintop. When you get to the mountaintop, it's not what you envision from the bottom. When you're in the bottom of the mountain, you look at the top of the mountain, it's just a point at the top, and you have this perspective of what that's going to be like. And then you get there, and then it is an amazing experience to be there, but it's not what you thought it was. In some ways it's better than what you thought, in some ways it's not what you thought. And I think I watched an interview with, I'm sure you know, or maybe not, but there's this comedian Matt Rife, and I love listening to his story because in his whole life he literally wanted to quit pursuing a comedy career until just like 1 year ago, and he literally did a backflip into success. And that's usually a very common narrative in today's society because of the quantum shifts that are available at this transitory time, because our nature is actually quantum, and these archetypes and getting to know these stories are actually very positive to train your mind into understanding this is really what does happen. That's what happens in today's landscape of energetic transformations. And this interview that he did, I think he talks about in some ways it's like a dream come true, and in some ways it's a total nightmare. And I'm not saying that when you accomplish whatever it is that you accomplish, it's gonna be a nightmare. No, I'm not saying that. It depends on your expectations, and it depends on how well prepared you are, and it depends on your level of consciousness. But what is beneficial is that you get to craft and co-create how that is going to be. And that's actually part of a long process of creation, is that you get to fine-tune the details when you're creating consciously the result. Instead of just stumbling into it, you get to really choose and learn how to craft those layers of energetics of your victory. Okay, last cards, I'm gonna use the Healing Waters Oracle. Let it go, release the past, forgive, soften, move forward. So you actually had this card with here, this animal card as well. You have two cards about seeing beyond the past and releasing the past, forgiving, softening. So these cards tell me that you're actually super cutthroat on yourself for your previous failures. And failure is a funny word because it's not really a thing if you know how to learn from them. And it prepares you for different dynamics of energy. When you try something and if it doesn't go the way that you planned, it's kind of like learning the rules of the game. Learning, for example, if you never shot a basketball before, you have to learn the aerodynamics of the ball and your own of if you throw it like this, if you throw it like that, what happens to the ball. And like, you need to kind of calibrate the shots. But for me, you doing this is like, you had these test runs of learning the aerodynamics of the ball, and then you're literally keeping tabs on the shots that you missed, and you're seriously resenting that you couldn't get it from the first place. So please release all the tabs that you're keeping on when things didn't go your way, and just soften yourself. Like, I see that you're very sad about your past, but you will learn that everything happened divinely, alignedly, perfectly, for reasons that are far beyond your current imagination. That is very divine, divinely orchestrated. And that voice of softening up to yourself is exactly what's gonna help you temper your strong ambition. So releasing your resentment towards the past and your past situations and your past performance, you know, it's not like a sports game, it's life. Sports game keeps scores, sports games keep track. Because it's a sports game, it's not reality. So don't keep scores like that on your own life, because it's so much more multidimensional than that strict parameter of what a game is. And that release towards your past and how you get to cultivate working with your past and releasing your past is going to help you temper your current navigation when it comes to balancing out your motivation and that ambition and that energy of just wanting to accomplish the next thing. All right, thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope this has been helpful. If you enjoy my work, please visit my Patreon, where I share a bunch of exclusive readings and activation. There's literally hundreds on there. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hello, beautiful friends who chose the love potion. Let's get into your reading. Children, little by little, what is this card? Get away. Okay. Okay. Star gathering. Chamber of the violet flame. Soul star activation. Hathor light codes. Now I'm gonna go into your tarot cards. Eight of Cups. Okay, there's been multiple messages of you leaving something behind and clearing space. And I am certain that you've done this many times throughout your life, leaving something behind. But I feel like you had to eventually let go of literally everything. You know how cells have a turnover of 7 years? They say that in 7 years, not a single cell remains the same as before. So every 7 years, you're an entire new carbon copy of who you were before biologically. This is like what I feel about your energy. And you might feel like, well, I already went through a process of purification with the friend groups or the belief systems or the situations or the clothing items or the belongings that I have. I already did that last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. How much more do I need to do? But actually, it is like that turnover rate of the cells of the 7 years. It feels to me like energetically, you opened a new portal of being at a certain point, and perhaps it truly was 7 years ago, that you had to eventually shed and replace little by little by little, which exactly card came out, little by little, because you can't handle cutting off literally everything at once. And sometimes what you let go of creates another refined iteration of that, and then you have to take that out and then create another refined iteration of that, and then create a refined initiation of that, and then let that go, and then finally you're at the complete new template. So I understand this process can seem like never ending, but actually it's just this turnover. And the more refined your reality becomes, I believe that the aspects that get anchored into your life begin to have more higher dimensional intelligence, so that eventually the things around you start to evolve alongside you. But for you to actually get to a point where you can attract the people, the situations, the belief systems, the energetic circuitry that evolves alongside you, first you had to let go of all the density little by little by little by little. And now is the sort of like the final purification of the final stages of whatever is left from the cellular turnover of the 7-year cycle. So it's like the last remaining relationship, the last remaining articles of clothing, the last remaining belief systems, the last remaining stories that you tell yourself, the last remaining forgiveness that you must perform, which does seem there is a level of forgiveness that you are again doing. And you might think, like, who have I left to forgive? Just everyone, including yourself. And this is bringing in the energy of you having fulfilled all of your soul contracts with the people who have come into your life. I see like relationships that you've had to learn from, that they learned from you, and the last remaining relationships may be difficult to let go of. More difficult than others because it's just like the last. But in remembering who you are, and those last remaining relationships may have the highest level of karmic cords or the codependent dynamic that you're not very aware of, that are very subtly complex. But this is a reminder for you. This is a time for you to completely rewrite your story. And that whole cycle of releasing repetitively every single year, every single month, has been a process of you clearing your entire karma of your whole incarnation. So it's as if you're becoming a new person, that cellular turnover on an energetic level, and it's the accumulation of everything that you've been programmed into as you came into this incarnation. And I don't even see this being from your past lives. It's just karma that you've accumulated simply by downloading into this incarnation. So it's karma that you took on with agreement of your ancestors, which basically will condense into all of the programming that you inherited from both of your parents, or maybe more if there are more parents. Some people have step parents. So it's that clearing, which is not connected with your past lives, but it's connected with the life that you've lived so far, that you've inherited by agreeing to take on this incarnation through that genetic cycle. And a lot of people watching this is actually beings who don't have earthly karma, who have already ascended through the third dimensional realms and everything to pretty much like unity consciousness. And then by stepping into this incarnation, you make an agreement to step into a foreign incarnation that doesn't have much to do with any of your personal soul lineage, but in taking on a foreign lineage of ancestral karma, you agree to transmute those and kind of take on a new form. And that's the kind of way that a lot of starseeds that are way on a higher level get to incarnate on Earth, and also why their family may feel so foreign, like completely from another world. And this existence and that structural coding itself just feels very unfamiliar to you. So if you're born into a karma that you're meant to go through, then it won't feel that unfamiliar, and you may not even notice that it's so out of alignment. But when you're experiencing karma that is not actually generated from your soul's lineage, it's confusing. It's like, why is this even a thing? Anyway, this is the process of you finally letting go of all of those karmic knots. And so yes, this is a little bit of a encouragement and a reflection back to you that it is safe to let go of these last remaining bits, and there is a reason for all of this. And even your behavioral patterns, you'll see that a lot of them that you thought was yours are going to shed as you go through this cycle of cellular turnover. Eight of Cups, leaving things behind. For you, I sense a lot of that Farias energy channeling that I did around the Arcturian. We have the Nine of Swords, King of Pentacles, Page of Cups, Hermit. I haven't seen this energy in a long time. Page of Wands. Knight of Pentacles. Eight of Pentacles. All right, let me just take a good look. The only major arcana here is the Hermit card. We have a lot of pages. We have a lot of people here. So let me get some oracle cards before I delve into that. The neighbors are just moving a lot of things around, slamming doors, and it just gave me a jolt. Like, why do they have to be so loud? The Sirens, user voice expansion, freedom. Making waves, momentum is building, it's your time, achievement. All right, it's making more sense with the tarot cards that came out. Oops, the water codes. Ancient wisdom, the intelligence is within you. Cosmic ocean, current dreams, future realities, new beginnings. What I see is that as you're leaving this whole cellular turnover behind, you're stepping through a portal. You're stepping through this vortex of truly transforming into the new biological being, energetic being. And while you are really releasing these last bits of what you thought made up part of your identity, I see that a lot of different people who you've already distanced yourself from, and people that you have already shed away from the dynamics of, with these karmic connections that were made based on your lesson plan. As you are just shedding the final last bits of them, even the people from the past are starting to pull on your energy because you're about to really transition. And in this transition, as you move through this transition, you're gonna be building a lot of momentum, and you're gonna be headed towards the peak of everything that you've been preparing to step into. And this momentum doesn't stop when you step into it, but it's a continual building up of an accelerated timeline that you're going to be stepping into, an accelerated path. It is a universally co-creative momentum of evolution that once you're on it, sort of like when you're on those when you go to the airport and there's like this moving path, it's kind of like that. It's like you just step on there, like you've been walking and then you just step on there and then it just glides. That's kind of like where you are going. And obviously that is a very linear example, but this is a multi-dimensional slide. Like you're stepping into a environmental position where things are gonna just move and take off, and it's going to be a dynamic ground. It's a lot of moving energy, a lot of moving pieces, and you're gonna be completely prepared to step into this dynamic ground because you're very adaptive and because you were made to perform this role of that sort of shape-shifting energy where everything that you're doing is simultaneously completely synchronized with the tides of your environment. It is like this state of flow in the progression of your life, and it requires a massive ego death or multiple to be able to handle those states, because everything that you think you are will be challenged. But that's exactly what you've learned to cultivate throughout that cellular turnover, whereas a lot of people, they literally rarely go through this level of change, even in like a span of 30 years. What people might normally go through in 30 or 40 years, you've been experiencing in just like the course of 7 years, few years, maybe even 4 years. And in the process of letting those aspects of you go, everything that you thought was part of your identity, anything that was egoic, any aspect of yourself, whether it's relationships, identity, career, ways of being, thought systems, even just telling between the archetypes of your mind, realizing that you're not any of them specifically, but you're the conduit of it all. That cellular turnover has prepared you to be at a space of tuning into the emptiness and everything that one is at essence. And only with that awareness of attunement to that level of being can you handle this momentum of that escalator that weaves in different dimensions. So imagine that airport escalator analogy, but that is not flat, it is not linear, but it's multidimensional. And that is like the state at which you're gonna exist. And the effect of you being able to handle that way of life is going to trigger that level of quantum shift for the collective. It's like really intense level of service that you're providing. At the same time, you're gonna have the best time ever doing it, because that is just going to be out of this world for you to live that life of some profound way of life that nobody even could imagine was possible, which you could see springing up here and there in our society as examples, but it hasn't even gone to the core expression of how that really manifests. And you're going to be one of the people who are going to actually live that life, because you've been trained to do that. That's part of why you had to go through this series of cellular turnover, energetic turnover, letting things go, letting things go, little by little by little by little, whereas the only thing left is that which remains unchanged through all of eternity, which is the essence of who you are. And everything else, now you get to choose preferentially how you want to express yourself in alignment with your soul. And much of this is pre-programmed into your consciousness as your path, but you get to dynamically co-create how that expresses itself. And so as you're moving through this, I see there's a lot of people from the past just thinking about you, wondering about you. You know, you're quite a mysterious and magnetic being to observe and witness. And I don't necessarily see that you're too vocal about it either, but people could just feel it, especially people from the past. Maybe you've had people that you distance yourself from, who they got to know you, maybe even your exes or friends that you had, or people that you used to work with, people who had a first-hand experience of you and who you are and what you're like and what kind of big impact that you've made in their life. They know how extraordinary you are and can't really forget this type of being. So I do see that a lot of people are wondering about that, as the collective is also moving through a shift, a very drastic shift. And that just reminds people of a certain energetic being as yourself who had that type of energy that is going to be anchoring through this entire collective shift. Like, you're one of those beings that came to share the new way of being, like just a shade of it. Of course, it's made up of many different expressions and archetypes and shades, but when you feel all of this energy pulling at you, please remember that you don't have to entertain it so much and the best way, I know that deep inside you do want to be of service, even if you're not in contact with them anymore. For the most part, I believe that you would want to be of assistance to them in some way. And the best way to actually be of assistance is to focus on riding this momentum to be the version of yourself that you came here to be, that new self. Like, you're going through a process of rebirth, and now is not the time to concern yourself with what can I do for them. Now is the time to receive that which you were meant to be and blossom from there. And once you go through this phase of blossoming, you'll be at a place where whoever is meant to benefit from your existence here, and when I say benefit, just be at a subject of your service, will receive that from an overflow of your essence, rather than you needing to go and literally do something for them. Like, it'll just overflow. And an example that I want to share is this. Some people feel the need to be there for people. For example, like when one of your distant friends or family is going through something and you don't exactly know how you could best be there for them, instead of doing something directly that you think is helpful for them, sometimes the best thing you can do is to heighten your frequency and be at your highest vibration, and that will ripple out to all of your networks that are connected with you on a quantum level. That is how quantum entanglement works on a quantum mechanics. Any shifts that occurs in a quantum particle, it travels directly and shifts a hologram in the connected networks, which genetics, for example, is a very powerful network that transcends our actions here just on the third dimension, but energetically automatically shifts. So if you do healing on yourself, you're actually healing all of your genetic connections up and down through ancestors. And so if you're thinking like, how can I best be of service to my family? Well, one of the most effective ways is really literally to vibrate at your highest frequency and do what it takes to vibrate at your high frequency. And if you have a choice point of like, I could talk to somebody for an hour that they're gonna lower my vibration, but I'd rather just extend my time and energy to listen to them complain for an hour, versus I will set my boundary with love and I will heighten my frequency to the most pristine degree, and that will energetically transfer to them instead of me lowering down my vibration. That's the most loving thing I can do. That's sometimes the right thing to do. I mean, you can be the discerner, but I'm just sharing some perspectives. All right, any final messages? I feel as you tune into these energies of different people, I feel your sense of irritation because you're just like, just leave me alone. But you know how to clear your energy. You know how to ground, you know how to dispel energy, and you know how to set the boundaries. So just know that this is not going to last forever. This phase of turnover, and this is the accumulative period where as you're shedding the last components of that which is left, everything else that came before is a little bit triggered. Do you understand? So it's not like this is gonna be for the next few years. It's just this turnover period, honestly, of around the month that you're watching this, extending into 2 or 3 months. And I believe that you're gonna be more so tuning into the next layers of yourself. So have compassion for yourself and just understand that this condition isn't going to last. I know that you're a very cyclically in tune person and you can feel all the subtle energies, and you might sometimes be like, how can I stop this from happening? Learn to work with your energetic field and create the toolkit to assist you in protection and kind of automatic maintenance of your energy field. So you can install different crystals, you can install different etheric tools in your energy field that you don't necessarily have to tune in all the time, but you can just kind of strengthen it periodically to amplify the power of those tools. So for example, if you install crystals in your energy field, that is going to soak up all of the mental energy coming from people and dispel it to the earth. You can do that. And then you can also have set up a window in which you can actually review those energies from the crystal, but that you don't necessarily have to tune into it all the time because the crystal is kind of doing that for you. So these are some sorcery that you could quite literally do if you know how to do your own field work, and you definitely know how to do your field work. Otherwise you wouldn't be really tuned into this reading. Yeah, maybe I will create activations or walk you through those as a guided process. I know I did that activation with the Isis attunement. That is a very powerful pyramid to have. And the more you focus on that periodically, the more it'll strengthen. But I've seen wonders creating that pyramidal structure and running that in my field to transmute energy. So yeah, don't feel disempowered when you feel pulled by all these scatters of energies, people pulling on you as you're transforming, because you know how to deal with it. And also, it's not forever. We have sacred boundaries, so this really talks about creating the boundaries. We have quantum jump, that you are literally quantum jumping. So as you go through this cellular turnover of the energies, and as you shed the final layers, I see you quantum jumping, literally quantum jumping. And last but not least, we have surrender to receive. So the final message that I have for you is to, this is really beautiful because you have sacred boundaries, which is this divinely masculine energy of having that discernment, and then we have surrender to receive, which is that divine feminine quality of surrender. Doesn't mean you're giving up, it means you are releasing into that which you desire, just releasing into it, like just relaxing into it. So you can relax and release into the next paradigm of your life that is anchoring through your field by setting the clear boundaries and discernment. And I believe that you're equipped with everything you need to welcome in that new paradigm of your life, and there's nothing more you need to do. You've done all the work, you've put in all of the work that you had to put in. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be called to take your action. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be called to take more proactive intentions, but it just means like you've done well, you've done enough, and you get to just now release into the paradigms that have been pre-programmed and constructed, co-created from you. And this is the moment where you get to just release into how did that crystallize into the field. It's like you baked all the cake, and now is the moment where you wait for it to cool down, and then you get to eat it. Okay. I hope that this reading has been helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending time with me. If you enjoy my readings, please check out my Patreon, where I have tons, literally hundreds of readings and activations that are exclusive to the platform. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.